Hello and welcome to another episode of Enter the Nerdosphere, the official podcast for the Nerdosphere, where we discuss everything from the silver screen to the small screen and anything in between.
Anything.
This week, we're discussing the Dark Universe and what the Mummy has done to set that up. And if you don't know what that is, it is the Universal Monsters shared universe. So, let's jump right into it.
For starters, I'm Corbin. He didn't mention that, and that's Clayton. He also didn't mention that. If this is your first time viewing in, it's important to have an understanding of who is who and whose voice is talking.
I'm waiting.
This is an official excerpt from darkuniverse.com. At its organizing principle, Dark Universe films are connected by a mysterious multinational organization known as Prodigium, led by the enigmatic and brilliant Dr. Henry Jekyll. Prodigium's mission is to track, study, and when necessary, destroy evil embodied in the form of monsters in our world. Working outside the guise of any government, and with the practices concealed by millennia of secrecy, Prodigium protects the public from knowledge of the evil that exists just beyond the thin membrane of civilized society, and will go to any length to contain it. Welcome to a new world of gods and monsters. Welcome to Dark Universe.
So that was
Prodigium.
an excerpt from their website, giving a brief rundown of what the Dark Universe is.
Prodigium and Dr. Jekyll so clearly is going to be the linchpin that holds everything together.
Yeah.
Similar to how in the early MCU is Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D.
And S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah.
Who were just kind of like the connective tissue between it all.
Yeah. So our first dive into this Dark Universe is the Mummy, and it does lay a fair amount of groundwork. I was actually surprised at how much groundwork it laid. It was a decent flick. You liked it a lot more than I did, but
Yeah, I mean, it's Alex Kurtzman's directorial debut. If that name rings a bell to you, or even if it doesn't, Alex Kurtzman and his buddy Robert Orci in the mid-2000s kind of were dominating the nerd film medium for being the main writers on a lot of popular franchises, whether it be Transformers, Star Trek, and other shows like Transformers Prime. And a few other things escape my mind, but their names were all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
It partially came from their relationship with J.J. Abrams, I think, and Spielberg that kind of jettisoned them into... and they both wanted to branch out into films. Kurtzman went to Universal with this idea of doing a shared universe, and Orci was jumping on the Amazing Spider-Man universe bandwagon. He was going to originally make his directorial debut with the Venom spinoff film that was going to be a part of, like I said, Mark Webb's Amazing Spider-Man film universe, where they're going to do the Sinister Six and stuff, and that obviously didn't work out for him, but Kurtzman still got his shot behind the camera.
yeah. I mean, directorially, the movie was good.
I think one of the things, right off the bat, before we even get into our opinion of the Mummy necessarily, one thing that I could tell that seems to be in their favor is, one, because Kurtzman comes from the background of writing, what they have done right so far that the DCEU did not was clearly there is some sort of roadmap. Whether or not it's as concrete of a roadmap that Kevin Feige always had for Marvel, I'm not sure how malleable it is or how thought out it truly is, but you can tell that there was foresight and it's not being made up as it goes along like the Transformer films were.
Yeah. Well, they were also involved with Transformers, so...
True, but that was old Hollywood. It was before shared universes, before that new mentality.
Yeah, but even just we just spent a whole podcast talking about how just the Transformers universe is just jumbled, and from sequel to sequel makes really no sense. So
yeah, but again, I think that just kind of goes back to just, when you make movies up as you go along, it's inevitable. It's going to be incoherent.
I mean, that's true.
I feel like they get a little bit of a pass, because especially like...
I don't think so. They don't get a pass?
They get a little bit of a pass because the worst movie in that franchise is Revenge of the Fallen, and a lot of people forget that was the year there was a writer's strike, so they started filming that movie with half a script. So, I mean, Dark of the Moon wasn't terrible.
Yeah, they were all bad. Except the first one was alright.
Okay. We're not here to talk about Transformers. We're here to talk about the Mummy. So,
I tried.
what what is your brief impression of the film?
Well, as I said 17 minutes ago,
It was not even 17 minutes. It's been like 5 minutes.
before you went on your Kirksman tangent, it's a decent flick. Not much more to say for me than that. What I liked about it actually was the Easter eggs for the rest of the universe and what it was doing to lay down. Like, I really liked Jekyll and Hyde, and I really liked the super brief nod to Swamp Thing and what
Creature of the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, that's
I mean, it's
two totally different things. Swamp Thing is
basically the same thing.
Swamp Thing's a Marvel.
I mean,
character.
they're basically the same.
It's not really.
Swamp Thing's not a Marvel character.
Mhm.
DC.
No, Man. Oh no, Swamp Thing is DC. Man Thing, which is the exact same character as Marvel.
Anyways, Creature of the Black Lagoon and a little nod to vampires existing and things like that. I like that stuff. I feel like the character Tom Cruise played wasn't really a good character for Tom Cruise.
Really?
Yeah, when he was acting like real sporadic and kind of stuff. I felt like he was forcing it. I didn't really like him in those moments. Story was pretty good. I enjoyed it the whole time, but there were several moments where I was like, but why would you do that when this is happening? So.
Okay. I really enjoyed it. It's been one of my favorite movies so far of the summer. I felt like the movie did a great job at towing the line between action, comedy, and classic horror elements, which I really appreciate given the source that it's coming from, and always paying homage to the original horror films that are the classic monsters. I enjoyed all of the cast. I felt like one of the things that really resonated with this movie for me was that a lot of it kind of felt like an Uncharted game. Like, there were a lot of moments, the way that the action was set up and the comedic beats, it reminded me a lot of kind of a not too serious, almost over the top, just action story like the Uncharted games are. And
I wouldn't say almost. I would say yes, over the top.
Okay. Well, I really that's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the movie. I thought Tom Cruise did a great job. I thought that Alex Kurtzman with The Mummy gave us an untraditionally flawed hero. To not spoil anything, there's that one moment where he was like, I thought there was another one. Like, in moments like that where you get to really see who his character was, I was like,
I did like that.
It allows for a deeper level of empathy, I think, for the character and root for, I don't know, for him to come out of it than a normal summer blockbuster that comes out around this time of year, like the other superhero films.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not saying I'm giving it like an 8 out of 10. Like, I would definitely do like a 7. Like, it was super entertaining. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna watch it again. I'm excited for the special features. But yes, some more intriguing parts were Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, how he portrayed both of those characters so completely differently, and you saw that they were two completely different characters. And how he worked inside Prodigium and stuff. Like, I'm excited to see what they do next.
Yeah, definitely.
So next up, we want to talk about what worked and what didn't work. First of all, one of the things I think that didn't work was, again, putting it right next to Wonder Woman. It was like the weekend after. And
just like we talked about with King Arthur a few weeks back, you never put, especially a new IP, you never put a new IP within, I would say, 2 weeks of a big superhero flick. Marvel and even DC, even though they come out and a lot of people just don't like the DC movies, or a lot of people like there's a lot more controversy as far as whether you like it or not, it's still going to pull in the market.
Right. And I just don't, no matter how confident you are in the IP or how well it could potentially do, just don't do it. Yeah. Just wait. I think that, like I said before with the classic horror elements, I think that there is a unique aesthetic to these films that would resonate even higher if it were released in like the fall. Like, they don't need to be summer blockbusters, and Marvel has proven that you don't need to release a movie in the summer to pull in summer money. You just have to be smart about where you're putting it. And if you put it near, like I said, in the fall, even like near Halloween and stuff, and that became like the niche, like every October a new classic monster movie is coming out, like that creates a community, that creates an aesthetic and expectation and a tone that I think would really benefit the dark universe.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I also, this was something that I don't think you necessarily agree with me when I initially told you, but of all the movies to have as the flagship film, I think it was unwise to choose The Mummy. I think the Brendan Fraser's Mummy, while it's not the original Mummy, it's a remake, still is a beloved film. It still has a heavy presence even at the Universal Studios in Orlando.
See, I don't know how beloved that movie still is because nobody's talking about it. It's not even really on TV reruns anymore, and they ran that franchise into the ground.
They ran the franchise into the ground with the third film, but the first film especially was very groundbreaking for special effects and the way that Imhotep looked and the way that they did the sand and the way they did his regeneration.
I mean, it was, but who's still thinking about The Mummy? Like, I didn't once connect those two, ever, when watching previews. I never thought about the Brendan Fraser movies. In fact, I even forgot it existed until you mentioned it.
Well, because I was, and I guess it just depends on like your circle, but I was around people who they were like, why remake that? And that's what got me thinking, like, maybe you should come out of the gates with like a more obscure title like Creature of the Black Lagoon or Frankenstein.
I almost thought, well, you could do Frankenstein. I think you have to establish a couple movies before you come out with the Black Lagoon. I don't know that there's going to be enough people interested enough in the Creature of the Black Lagoon without having the Dark Universe established already.
That's fine. Or even like if Prodigium is the linchpin, why not just come straight out of the gates with the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde film with the main cast, Russell Crowe being the leading man, and it be a movie just all about that? Or does that character work better being more of a mystery and it unfolds as it goes? That's a good question.
It has almost been 20 years since the original remake. Brendan?
Has it?
Mm-hmm. So it's a long time.
Let us know in the comments below what you thought as far as what Clay and I are talking about right now. Is the original Mummy remake beloved to you, or are you on the same side of the fence as Clayton, whereas like it's so far separated that you didn't think twice about it?
Yeah.
Things that I kind of already talked about my opinions on what worked. I enjoyed the tone. I enjoyed the comedic beats.
One thing I think didn't work, and this may surprise you because I'm a huge fan of the dude who played. Wait, hang on. Hold on. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm going to... Hang on.
You're going to talk about his companion, aren't you? I thought
Jake Johnson.
I kind of liked him.
See, he played his typical self, but I just don't think he fit. I don't think that style of comedy fit. I love that actor, and I've loved him in just about everything he's done. But I really just didn't think that he fit there. It just felt like they were trying too hard.
I thought he fit before his second act role. I thought in the first act,
I completely agree with you there. He made even less sense in the second act.
So in the second act, he was fine. You probably could come out of the second act and still had what he did in the first and third act.
But that's also, he kind of ties in with part of what I had an issue with, because I really don't think they portrayed like military operation very accurately in this movie. Like they were off way by themselves in the beginning. He's clearly like not following the rules. Like I don't think he would be a sergeant in charge of anything if that was his personality. Like the commanding officer comes in, he's like, "Oh, you're doing it again. I know you're lying. I know you're stealing all this stuff or going treasure hunting and stuff." Like that just wouldn't happen.
Sure. Now, would you say it's worth people's time to go see this movie?
It's worth your time to see it. Is it worth your time to go spend money in the theater? Probably not.
Would you say it's worth people's now here's another question that's in the same vein. Do you think it's worth people's time to see the movie on an entertainment aspect, or would you think it's worth people's time to see it because it's obviously something you have to know for the bigger picture is what I mean?
I'd say both. I think most people would probably enjoy this movie. Okay. But I don't think that I enjoyed it. It's not blowing me away by any means. And like I said, the biggest thing that I like about this film is what it's setting up. So
okay. So next up is I'm going to kind of unload a little bit, and then we're going to kind of unpack it because we're moving on from the Mummy and just the broader spectrum of the Dark Universe. So next up we're going to talk about how should they move forward. And I think that moves in tandem with the next films that are coming up. So I'm going to talk about it real quick, then we're going to unpack it. So next up for sure is The Bride of Frankenstein, which comes out February 14th, 2019. It's the only movie in the lineup to actually have a set release date, and it's also one of the only movies that doesn't have a set actor played for the role. It's rumored that Angelina Jolie is linked to the film, but there's been no confirmation that she has signed the contract to be the Bride of Frankenstein. Other things that are confirmed are Johnny Depp has been cast as the Invisible Man. Javier Bardem has been cast as Frankenstein's monster, and they do talk about him having his own film outside the Bride. So initially I was like, well, maybe they're going to like retool the story of the Frankenstein's monster. But no, Frankenstein is going to get his own movie, and it's coming out after the Bride of Frankenstein. Wolfman is also another classic monster that's coming out, but it's lacking a lead. Again, it's rumored that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is desired for the role, but he has not been cast, just like Angelina Jolie. Other films that are slated to come out are Creature from the Black Lagoon, Phantom of the Opera, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Dracula. And there still is this ambiguity of Dracula Untold and whether or not they will double down on that and have Luke Evans come back as Dracula or completely wash it. There's never been a confirmation of that. The only confirmation we got was that The Mummy was the launch pad for the Dark Universe. And Luke Evans in 2016 said, as far as he knew, he wasn't told no yet. And then Alex Kurtzman is also quoted as saying, there are characters within those films that can grow and expand and maybe even spin off. Adding, I think that digging into deep mythologies about monsters around the world is fair game for us as well, and connecting the monsters that we know to some surprising monsters could also be really interesting. That's probably a direct reference to like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, since his name is not in the lineup of individual films, but could if desired.
Yeah.
So that is everything that's coming out. So we'll unpack that, and I think that, like I said, that moves in tandem with how do you move forward with all of this slated to come out.
Well, my first thought is the next movie shouldn't be 2 years away or a year and a half away.
Right.
If you want to establish a cinematic universe, as kind of shown by the success of Marvel and the chaos that is DC, you got to have a lineup ready to go.
Because you have to move the train forward.
Yeah, you have to. You can't build this world and then sit on it for a year and a half. So that's where I would go. Also, me and you have talked about it off cast before, but I don't know that Bride of Frankenstein is the right move to go next.
Right. So The Mummy, obviously, at this point, is considered a flop. It didn't meet the standards that they wanted. It's obviously not a flop like King Arthur. It's still making money. It's probably still going to profit at the end of its run. But it caused so much alarm that the execs at Universal were asked, like, are you abandoning ship? And they said no. They're basically doubling down. And they said if the Bride of Frankenstein doesn't succeed, then they'll have the discussions of do we abandon ship?
Continue? Yeah.
So if you are in the mindset of doubling down,
that's the wrong conversation to be having. Yeah, we're gonna double down, and then we'll decide if Bride of Frankenstein doesn't perform. While it's got a better release date, February, which typically doesn't have like strong competition, but I have no desire to see a Bride of Frankenstein movie. The only reason I would even consider seeing it is because it's in this universe. And again, kind of the same thing as what I was saying with the Creature of the Black Lagoon. You need to establish this universe first in order for us to actually be interested in seeing these more obscure characters. Like,
right.
We need to see Frankenstein. Even Invisible Man for me is like, I know he's one of the classic monster films, like from the 30s.
And he's a great book.
Yeah, but I almost think that you have to put that on the back burner too. Like, this isn't put James Gunn in charge of Guardians of the Galaxy type situation. This is, we need to establish a brand new IP and, get the train moving, as you said. So, I don't know.
Like actors. So one of the big things that the Dark Universe is trying to garner attention with is like getting like certain named actors to lead their films.
Yeah.
You can tell they're going for it, but what they don't understand is that these actors only bring in a specific type of attention. Tom Cruise is not an end-all be-all actor to bring in money.
Especially nowadays. Like, this isn't the 1980s and the 1990s where you go see a movie for the actor anymore. Like, now you go to see the movie because of the story, because of the context, because of the director or the writer. You don't go necessarily because of... I'm not going to see a movie just because Brad Pitt's in it.
No,
you just don't do that anymore.
Well, I mean, and it shows old Hollywood, like we've talked about over and over again on our podcast. But then you also have like Johnny Depp as the leading man in The Invisible Man. He's not bringing the attention anymore. Javier Bardem, he brought the attention momentarily after he was like nominated at the Oscars. He might have won, I'm not sure. But he's not like in anything spectacular anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
he was recently he was in the most recent Pirates film with Johnny Depp, but who flipping cares about the Pirates films?
Apparently
Apparently,
some people.
Even Angelina Jolie at this point, it's like she's not like a huge
Yeah. Like I'd
person.
say the most relevant, I mean, I guess Johnny Depp to an extent is always going to be somewhat relevant, but the most relevant name on this list is Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but however much I'd really like The Rock, I don't see him as Wolfman.
I don't want to. And I look back to the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro and how great
That was a really
that
good
movie
movie.
was. That movie was so good.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions come to mind when I look at all this, and I go, one, I'm a little excited to see their interpretation of like these things in present day, because I thought that was something that worked well in The Mummy, was seeing it in present day and how that functioned and seeing Prodigium. Two, I think personally they should double down Luke Evans' Dracula, because after seeing what happens in The Mummy, something that really resonates in these films is this inner darkness and a decent to not like okay person taking on such darkness to overcome an evil. That like Dracula Untold was exactly that, like to a T. If you're talking about like on a thematic level,
Yeah.
that you should bring that character back, because if you were going to remake Dracula and continue that sort of theme, you're just redoing what you did in Dracula Untold.
Yeah.
So just bring him back. He's a great actor. It was a
They
good
should just
movie.
do it a la Incredible Hulk, where there's like a few little references to it, but it's like not real. I mean, it is a part of the universe, but it's not.
Right, and then we had talked about after the movie, like there was a very ambiguous line dropped at the end of the Mummy that you could interpret a couple different ways, and one of the things that we interpreted was there's this overarching villain that maybe that could be plaguing the Dark Universe, and I
The
said
only
what
way
great
they
way is
could-
as if it's the original vampire from Dracula Untold. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be good. It would be a good idea. However, I think more likely what's going to happen is that Dracula will be more of a traditional Dracula, where he's just bad, and he's probably the big bad guy. That's my guess. If they don't bring Luke Evans' Dracula back.
Yeah. In which case you kind of like, I think one of the things that I guess also comes to mind is, since all of these seem to be going to be retooling for present day, one of the reasons that the doubling down Dracula Untold works is that you've already been to the past. I think Dracula as an aesthetic, one of the things that really makes him work is like the past. But they've told that story and they set up Dracula Untold to be in present day. So you're already kind of used to that tonal transition.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to resell me on how does Dracula work in present day.
I'm looking up something real quick, so stall.
Okay. Some of the other things that really caught my attention to kind of go, what? Were Kurtzman recently had dropped Phantom of the Opera as being a Dark Universe film, and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And the Phantom of the Opera doesn't really jive with me as far as it being a monster movie. And the same thing with Hunchback of Notre Dame, because he's just like deformed. Now, obviously, you know, they could be retooling this to be whatever they want. And maybe the Hunchback of Notre Dame is some sort of orc or something, and you know, the Phantom of the Opera is some sort of spirit, and not just, you know, an abused person with, you know, burn marks and stuff. But initially, I was like, that seems a little insensitive.
Okay, so here's kind of where I was going. I just looked up all the like original monster movies to see when they came out, because I think that they should mimic the release dates and at least hit like the original heavy hitters. So Dracula and Frankenstein actually came out a year before The Mummy in 1931. Mummy came out in 1932. But then you start getting into 1933 was The Invisible Man. 1935 was The Bride of Frankenstein. So you've already established Frankenstein. Now you got The Bride of Frankenstein.
Right. And The Bride of Frankenstein, when I was briefly looking it up, is almost critically known for being such a successful horror sequel, for building upon what came before it and adding new elements. So if you're going to do the reverse, it seems a little odd.
Then you've got Dracula's daughter. Then you've got Son of Frankenstein. Then you have the Wolfman. Then you start getting into the Ghost of Frankenstein. I don't know. And then it just starts kind of going into like Dracula meets Wolfman, Dracula versus Frankenstein, like all those older classics start meeting each other and stuff. So why don't you do something similar to that? Like, that just kind of goes back to my point where, while I'm proved wrong a little bit with the Invisible Man being like one of the first ones, Creature of Black Lagoon wasn't until 1954, which is after all the ones I just read.
Right.
But I don't know. Establish some of the big heavy hitters before you start going after Bride of Frankenstein. I guess that's the main point to this tangent, is don't go after the Bride of Frankenstein next.
Especially when the next movie is going to be your salvation, I guess.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you want your next film to be what saves and propels your films longer, while I totally agree with you on the casting, it's almost like you almost need to shove out a Wolfman movie with The Rock to save the franchise.
Yeah, because that would, it would bring in
Because
dollars.
while I agree also that this is not the day and age where you go see a movie because of an actor, he kind of breaks.
Some of them do. Some of them do break the mold,
and he's one of them. Because his the Jumanji movie looks really intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Even Baywatch, as ridiculous as it looks, I kind of want to see it just because he looked funny in it.
I was just kind of looking up to see how long it's been since a Frankenstein movie, and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is a really good movie, came out in 1994. So there's even more space in between that and like today than the two Mummy movies. So
right.
I don't know. I just feel like, how do you go into the Bride of Frankenstein without establishing your Frankenstein?
True. And I don't want to get down too much of this tangent because it's almost veering off a little bit and we need to be winding down. But I was thinking about cool ways of retooling for modern day. And I think you could always look to Fright Night as a good roadmap of how vampires can work at present day, and like really building into the lore of types of vampires. Because one of the things I really enjoyed about that movie and allows for rewatchability is when you really start to pick up on subtle dialogue detail from like Colin Farrell's vampire, and you to like see the specifics, like the specificities of like that vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And how that specific vampire exists underground and like this, that, and the other.
I don't think that they're going to go into that detail here.
No, but I think that's one of the things that is going to make me want to come back to these movies, is really like really carving out a deep lore.
Yeah, definitely.
But
all right, well.
So that was our podcast on the Mummy and the Dark Universe. I'm still game for this. You know,
I'm hopeful.
As I see people stumble and fail at trying to mimic Marvel, I start to question myself: do cinematic universes have to exist outside of Marvel because no one knows how to do it? But at the same time, I'm like, the reason why it's working is because old Hollywood is trying to play ball with a new game, with their mentalities that's stuck in yesteryear.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need to evolve. You need to adapt. You need to see what's working and realize all of your preconceived notions, they need to go out the window, because that's not the world we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be a part of new Hollywood, throw the rule book out, and really experiment, dive deep into characters, dive deep into lore, and give me an overarching story that I can dig my teeth into.
Yep.
So let us know what you thought of this podcast. Let us know what you think about the Dark Universe. What did you think of The Mummy specifically? Did you enjoy it? Do you want to see it? Are you going to see it after this? As always, you can always follow us on every podcast medium you can possibly think of. We prefer you to rank us on iTunes. Leave us a little review. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share to your friends. As always, from the bottom of our hearts. See you
next time.